What if I mimic that in a way, but build it in such a way that it fills in the gaps that the universities don't do? So that's how I came up with this idea. And so the organization is about just creating a shared space for learning, for people to come together to wrestle with tough questions.
Welcome to another episode of Innovation Insights, where we dive deep into the minds shaping the future of industries through innovation, creativity, and groundbreaking research. We believe that innovation happens in all aspects of life. I am your host, Dr. Eulanda Sanders. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Lance Bennett, president and founder of the People's Institute for the Common Good. Lance is a visionary leader, educator, and community builder whose work is rooted in the belief that meaningful change begins with collective commitment and shared purpose. With a doctorate in leadership and higher education from St. Edward's University, along with multiple advanced degrees in communication studies, Lance blends academic scholarship with lived leadership experience to foster spaces of dialogue, imagination, and transformation. At the People's Institute for the Common Good, he is creating spaces where individuals and communities come together for critical dialogue, shared learning, and collective action, all in pursuit of a society shaped by equity, understanding, and mutual responsibility. His programs, such as community-based book clubs and new initiatives that connect students with innovative, credit-bearing learning experiences, demonstrate his deep commitment to reimagining education as both a higher level of consciousness and a shared path toward the common good. In our conversation, Lance and I explore how education can and must be innovated beyond traditional classrooms, the importance of community-based learning, and the challenges and opportunities that come with building organizations rooted in equity and justice. This is a conversation about leadership, purpose, and the courage to create something new when the old ways no longer serve. You will not want to miss the insights and inspiration from Dr. Lance Bennett. Lance, welcome to the Innovation Insights podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Eulanda. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Well, I'm really thrilled too, because you're one of our guests that reached out to me. You saw the podcast through some other guests that were on and then reached out. And so glad that you did that. And I hope more people do that too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I saw a couple of guests on LinkedIn, and I was like, it's a cool podcast, and so I would love to have this conversation with her, and so I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, tell us about your journey. Because you're Dr. Bennett.
Mhm.
And so tell us a little bit about that. And then also you have founded the People's Institute for the Common Good, which is such a fascinating title for organization. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll tell you, I'll start way back when I was in undergrad. So when I was an undergrad, I went to community college for my first 2 years of school, and I was in a class with a professor, and she introduced me to the world of research. I didn't know what academic research was at that point, right? But she was like, I have this honors course option that someone needs to do because my dean is making me do it, and I would like to give it to you. And so I was like, okay, what does that entail? She was like, you do the class like everybody else, but you have a term paper that you'll write. That'll be about 25 pages, and that we'll send to an academic conference. And so I didn't know what academic conferences were at that time. So I said, it sounds like a good idea. So let's just do it. Right. So I was like, okay. Once I did it, I struggled with that one quite a bit, actually. But it was for my argumentation and debate class. And so the paper was on President Obama's use of narrative rationality in his more perfect union speech. And yeah, so it really was interesting. And I was a communication studies major, and I used communication theory to help do that. And so I got an early jump in the academic space. Yeah.
And this was at community college.
Is that community college?
Kudos, because I went to community college too.
Yeah.
Yay. Hey, educators out there, when you're thinking that, oh, undergraduates aren't ready for starting research, here's a great example, and at a community college too. And so I know
Yeah,
community colleges sometimes get a bad rap, but yay, look at this.
yeah.
Started him on his
It
doctoral.
really it really helped me, like, I think my community college, my professors, my mentors at that institution, shout out to Delaware County Community College, Pennsylvania, they really helped me solidify my career. That's where my career began. I was also a work study student in the Office of First Year Experiences, and Dr. Kendrick Mickens was my mentor and my supervisor. He is the one that introduced me to higher ed as a career too. So I didn't know. I was like, how does one do this? Because I was like this. And he was like, you gotta go get your master's and then get your doctorate and all of that. And yeah, yeah. So that's how everything really began. And it just continued to build once I went to my 4-year institution. I went to a liberal arts institution called Eastern University, also right outside of Philadelphia. And even there, my professors invited me to be a TA for courses that I took in previous semesters. So I had the opportunity to lecture, to grade assignments, to really get a full like preview of what grad school was going to be before. And so yeah, that's how everything started.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, and it really speaks to the importance of engaging undergraduate students in the research early on. And then for the faculty that and academics that listen to this podcast, it's important that you do that. And then also it's important that you talk about your experiences and mentor undergrads because look at this. Okay, I'll get off my so I love to get on my soapbox. I'll get off my soapbox. I wanna talk about your communication studies, and then we're gonna come back to the People's Institute for the Common Good.
Yeah.
Communication studies and higher ed leadership. I have a family member who's has degrees in those areas, and so talk
Yeah.
to me about that because I think they're a powerful combination.
Yes, yes. I think communication studies goes with pretty much any field of study. And just for the listeners out there, communication studies isn't about hardwiring of cable. Communicate that's communications. But communication studies is about human interaction with the world, right? So whether it be in organizations, interpersonally, with the media itself, social media nowadays. There's some communication studies scholars who are interested in health, public health. There are folks who study rhetoric. There's a bunch of folks study a lot of things. People study public relations, and so there's a lot of branches of communication studies. So my focus specifically was on interpersonal and organizational communication. And again, I think that foundation really helped me kind of to see the different the different challenges within higher ed and being able to broaden my own research with combining these 2 fields of study. So, yeah, I think it's an amazing combination that gives you a lot of versatility.
Oh, it does. And so how does it impact your work with, I guess, just your career? How I would just like, how has it impacted? Because communication is so important. And you've studied the micro interpersonal, but then also organizational. So how's that impacted your career?
I think it really gives me just a really unique perspective. I see like the bird's eye view of everything, and then I see the ground view of all of it. And I really do think it's helped me to advance in the profession. It's allowed me to work at a systems level. So like I'll tell you an example. When I was previously the director of assessment and accreditation at the University of Texas at Dallas. And so I was working on a project where I was doing some a little bit of strategic initiatives for the institution. My project was designing a continuing and professional education office for the university, like so from scratch. Problem there was that one, no one wanted this project, and two, we were trying to figure out how to get more people into the university. So when I think about the interpersonal aspect of it, I think about part of the strategy that I put together was in building relationships with people. That's where that comes in. Simultaneously, like on the organizational and the system level, I think it's how you maintain those relationships over time. The way I designed that project was so that way people feel that the institution will be a place that they can continuously come back to, whether they complete a degree or not. So that was some of the philosophy around how you do it. And so, like, again, the communication piece, when I think about my courses in persuasion that I was taking in undergrad and grad, all of that plays into how you do it. And yeah, again, how the organizational classes too, like how it comes together with so the way I designed this program was I was trying to give how back in the day when video games used to come in a cereal box and like it would be like a demo, right? So it would be only like maybe 4 or 5 levels to the game. That was designed to entice you to buy the full game. And so I kind of designed it like that, where people who had some credit but not the full degree, they would be able to come to university, take a couple classes for free, and that was going to hopefully entice them to complete the full degree. And so that's how I pretty much designed that model. It's from that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that it was fun. It was a cool project, and I think again, and I think that's where having both fields come together is such a really unique thing. You just see things from multiple perspectives.
Mhm. Well, and, implementing something new within academia and those that are not in academia have no idea.
Yes.
And that it is to create anything new is extremely hard because of the system itself, and then, people are busy and people don't like change, and for some reason, academia is a little bit even more cautious about change. Kudos to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I think for me, and again, here's both fields coming together, right? Understanding the landscape of higher ed, the politics of higher ed, while also understanding the changes that need to be made and the challenges that we're currently experiencing in higher education, combined with how to get people on board with my agenda. So like my joke was like, I feel like I'm a politician on campus because I gotta get I gotta get folks on board. I gotta get the faculty senate to vote on my stuff. I have to get and the way it was structured was like that governance structure at that institution was it was like 5 steps before something could fully pass. And so each step having to build that momentum each way. And so I was able to get a lot done. I'm proud to say that I was able to get I don't think I didn't have anything not pass. So, I was always really happy about that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, the checks and balances within academia and the processes for new programs, new
Yes.
anything, buildings, in new anything,
Anything. Anything. Yeah, yeah.
a new course, a new flyer.
People think stuff just pops up, new degree programs pop up. No, it does not go like that. There's a lot of internal stuff, there's external stuff with the state that you have to take care of and in the Department of Education that you gotta take care of, and in the case of STEM programs, Department of Homeland Security, right? So there's a lot of different things that you gotta touch on to make sure it works.
Well, kudos to you. And so, how did you take that experience and use that to found the People's Institute for the Common Good? And tell us about this because, again, it's such a
Yeah.
great title.
Yeah, so the People's Institute for the Common Good came out of a few different things. So I'll say first, I was on a trajectory to wanting to be a college president. And so I was building the pathway for that and building relationships across the country, just building knowledge and expertise wherever I can. I was doing all that. But I think something hit me where I was like, one, there's something here that's missing from what I truly want to do. I want to be able to have the space where people can just learn for learning's sake. I feel that higher ed right now is basically a enterprise in which there is a designed outcome that you need to achieve, which is getting a job, which I'm all for. I'm all for work-based education. Simultaneously, though, I believe that we should also have education for people to edify themselves. And that's where my philosophy of education, that's where the core of it is. And my argument is we need people in businesses who have ethics, right? We need both. We need both of that. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, but the way I see things going, okay, it's going to be an uphill battle for me to be in a space where what I want is going to manifest itself. So I was at our national conference, the American Association for Colleges and Universities, and I read a ton of higher ed books, by the way. And at this conference, there was a couple of authors who wrote this book about startup universities. These are legitimate institutions that are out in the United States, that are totally reputable. And so I went to this panel and listened, and some of the founders of these institutions were there. And so I had an idea. I was okay. Well, like, what if I maybe not go that far and maybe not create a whole university or a college, but what if I created a learning space and I have the prototype of a university in my mind 'cause I know how it works. What if I mimic that in a way, but build it in such a way that it fills in the gaps that the universities don't do? So that's how I came up with this idea. And so the organization is about just creating a shared space for learning, for people to come together to wrestle with tough questions. And hopefully we can do that. We can create a better future.
I love it. I love it. And that's a model I've looked at that model quite a bit too, of startup universities and as building innovation insights. And one in my discipline that has been extremely successful is SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. Just an amazing startup that over the years. And you've spoke about some gaps. What are some of the gaps that you feel that you can start to fill in?
Yeah. So for me, though, those gaps are mostly community-based education, where a lot of institutions are not really focused on. So for me, my approach is to this is an open space that's free of charge for folks to come and learn, to engage with scholars, experts, thought leaders, to hopefully just gain more knowledge and more insight. And so through that, we run 3 different programs. One is our Better Society Book Club. This is where we partner with a bookstore in Dallas, where we, read books by authors that challenge us, that help us think through the difficult questions. So, for example, right now we're doing a series on the importance of friendship, and what does it mean to be a good friend? That's the question that we're exploring. We also do our lunch and learns, which happen once a month. Is where we bring a leader, a thought leader, expert scholar on Zoom to talk about different topics that are pressing in society right now. And then finally, our third program, which we're getting ready to launch later this fall, is called Voices for Good. This is where our distinguished speaker series. So authors will come and talk about their work. Like in March, we have Dr. Karita Brown from Emory University coming to Dallas. This is where we bring them to Dallas and have them engage with the community. We have partners to help us with this. The cultural centers in the city of Dallas have joined us, and a few other entities, a few banks and credit unions have signed on to be partners in this endeavor too. And so for me, I think this is the biggest gap that we're filling is that scholarly access to people, right? Like to experts. Some of these people are my friends. Like I can call and text them, but most people don't have access to people who have deep knowledge about a topic. And I think that's something that we're missing right now in society. So couple the issues we got going on right now with disinformation and lack of anti-intellectualism with just lack of access to scholars and thought leaders and people who have deep knowledge in certain fields of study. This is where my institute comes in to fill that void.
That's fabulous. And I love that you have such clear programming and that's great as a startup basically too.
Yeah, the goal was to in starting this up, my goal was to make sure as a nonprofit organization to not do too much, to fill the need that we have and keep it pretty streamlined. And in fact, I actually founded the organization in 2024, but I didn't launch it until April of 2025. Part of it was because of I was nervous about it, but in hindsight, this gave me a really good opportunity to think through how to make my programs distinct from one another while simultaneously keeping everything clear and focused. So yeah, again, I feel like starting a new endeavor is always there's always kinks that you're going to work out, right? There's mistakes that you might make, but balance all that with making sure that you don't have an unfinished product, right? Like, that's half baked. Yeah. It's always my philosophy in life is little maintenance is always better than big maintenance.
That's a good.
Listen, look, and that's with anything. Oil change is better to take care of than having to get a whole new transmission. And so that's just my philosophy. And I take that with this work too.
That is great. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that also follow us or that have been guests. And could you share some of your learning from launching an institute? 'Cause we
Yeah.
haven't really had anyone that's launched it. Maybe we have that launched an institute.
Yeah. So my experience in doing this, well, one thing I've learned so far is that there is a desire for this type of work. That is a very good thing. When I first launched it, I was nervous about like how many people would be interested in this type of stuff. Turns out quite a bit of folks are interested and have showed up to our programming and have participated and have a need and a desire for knowledge that's accessible, right? And so that's the one thing I've learned. I think the second thing I've learned so far is making sure that it's important to just stay true to why you started it in the first place. And I'll tell you about one mistake that I made that allowed me to really, again, refine and think through things. The challenge we had was one, yeah, people were coming and showing up to our events. However, there were more people, there were some people not coming, right? They were registered, but not come. And again, these events were free. And so I tried to figure out, okay, how do we close the gap between that? We have over 50% people attending who register, which is a great thing. But can we close that gap a little bit? And so part of what I did was I tried to make the lunch and learns free. Not free, excuse me, paid events, right? So they were going to be paid events. So it was going to be like $10 and you would get access to the recording. You would get access to you get a learning bundle. You would get a whole bunch of stuff. People didn't like that. Right? And so I was like, Man, this is not working out in the way I thought." And the good news is, again, so let's tie it back to what we talked about before of, keeping that bird's eye view and the ground view on the stuff. I was able to see, like, on the ground, this is not really working. And and so I pretty much went back to the drawing board overnight, essentially, and I came up with a different model for this. Basically, keep the lunch and learns free. And if anyone wants the additional bonus, the learning bundle and the recording, they could subscribe to our Substack, just $5 a month. So that helps one to balance the revenue piece with people attending, with people who want the extra stuff. Because it might not be, I think where I made the mistake is assuming that people would want the extra stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Why do you think people don't want the extra stuff? You think it's just overwhelm or
Maybe I think some people just want to attend the lunch and learn and for that 1 hour, get the information and go. And I think there might be others who want the deep knowledge or the further information, the further details about the topic, and providing space for both and creating a model that does that as an organization, I think this helps to fulfill that need. And so a few people have started to subscribe to the paid Substack now, right? So again, it helps with the revenue plus the trying to meet the needs of everybody.
Right.
And I think that's another thing that's really good about this organization is like there's multiple needs that we're meeting for people simultaneously. You have the people who may not want to necessarily engage with the author in person, but just want to read their work. The book club helps fulfill that.
Yeah.
You have folks who want to attend a live lunch and learn that's only for an hour.
Mhm.
You get the information from the expert and go about their day. But then you have people who want to continue reading and watching materials about that topic. Then you have the Substack. If you want to have more of a scholarly conversation with the author, that's where this distinguished speaker series comes in. So I think again, it's fulfilling multiple needs. And again, I can't help but take my higher education background
Mhm.
and seeing one, different approaches to education, but two, seeing where institutions have fallen off and trying to create generalized experiences for everybody.
Because you've just really have articulated basically different pathways to accessing knowledge and information, and that's what your institution's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, I wasn't gonna say anything. You got it.
And it's nice, and, so what does higher ed need to do? I've been in higher ed now for,
Yeah.
ooh, like 38 years,
Wow.
maybe, yeah, around there.
Yeah. This is interesting. That's an interesting question. Where do I begin? There's so many different things that can happen. I actually think, and this is something that we're working on right now at the Institute, is actually building partnerships with community-based organizations. I think, and so we're actually working with one university right now. I can't say the name yet, but we're working to have their students be part of our programming for college credit.
That's great.
It's a way for them to engage with the community while simultaneously thinking about different ways that learning takes place. And so I think one of the future models could be more of a community-based approach where they partner with community-based organizations. Because my philosophy and my arguments when I was an administrator full time was we're the university of this place, but how well do we do a good job of serving this place or being for this place? And so I think that starts to shift the conversation of, okay, yes, there are needs in our local community, educational needs that we haven't met yet, but we're gonna go overseas to start a whole campus over in the Middle East? Come on now. Come on now. And stuff like that used to really drive me up the wall. And some people look at me strange, and I'm like, I don't know, this is like common sense to me. You got so many people here in the Dallas region that need education opportunities to the point where your local problems might be solved just by tapping into this one market right here. And but we're focused on 12 hours away. It's mind-boggling. I think to answer your
No,
I think
I so agree. I so agree, and I agree. I love that you said enrollment problems could be fixed because higher ed has focused. They have their target market, their general population, and that is who is generally recruited. And when I was a department chair, I said many a times that I feel like we need to look outside of the programs I was in was mainly white females, were the and it's great. That's important. But also, if we go out and recruit the people that are missing, there is a population out there, and that population that we hadn't there wasn't as much, and that's part of the enrollment cliff. But there's still 8 billion people here on this earth, So this enrollment cliff, we shouldn't be falling off of it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, and this one that has changed my philosophy over time. I also believe that maybe it is time for some institutions to close. This one is a bit more controversial one. I think if you get to a point where you are no longer able to either structure this place in a way that meets the demand for today, and your approach to education is that of the 1900s entirely, and if you're still struggling, and if you're gonna be so resistant, and if it's too late, it might be time to have that conversation. Now, I'm not saying that should be the first thought that happens, but I think you should try everything you can. But at the same time, I think it should cross your mind though, okay, what maybe this is the path that needs to happen. And so the thing is, so with shutting down institutions, I also think there's time to create new institutions too. I actually think there are a lot of different approaches that would be really nice in the 21st century. Micro colleges are a nice movement happening. Every university doesn't need to be an enterprise, or every college, I should say, doesn't need to be an enterprise. One of my favorite books in higher ed is called Alternative Universities, Speculative Design for Higher Ed by David Staley. He's a professor at Ohio State. He's a historian, but a lot of his work is on the future. So it's fascinating. It's very fascinating. He has a bunch of different potential universities that can exist, moving forward, bunch of different models. And I actually built the institute around a couple of these different models. So, like, micro college is one model that he puts in there where it's so localized and so focused on the curriculum is around fulfilling the needs of their community.
Mhm.
He also puts in there, like, what the faculty would be. It would be structured around 1 or 2 faculty in this micro college. There wouldn't be departments per se, how we have them now. Um, there wouldn't necessarily be a difference between faculty and administrators. The administrators would be the faculty and vice versa. So it's fascinating how he maps this out, and for all the higher ed folks listening, I would definitely recommend, yeah, getting this book because it really opens your mind up about what how we can design things differently. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get it. Yeah, I'm gonna share with some friends too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just what are your thoughts about AI and higher ed? Because I don't think that a higher ed I think higher ed is not ready, not
Yeah.
racing. I've been just digging in for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah. I think at first, when the first AI when ChatGPT first came out and all of that stuff a few years ago, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is really bad for higher." I think there's a lot of potential dangers with this for sure, 100%. Uh, but my opinion has shifted a little bit over time, where I actually think is an opportunity for higher ed to get back to some of the basics of the humanities, of the social sciences, to be able to educate for education's sake. I actually think there's an opportunity for higher ed to say, okay, if students are using going to use ChatGPT, for example, to complete assignments, is it because we feel like these assignments are mundane and busy work? If that's the case, then how do we think through something that AI can't do? Um, yeah, AI can mimic virtual reality. It can mimic augmented reality experiences in which some universities are testing, like Morehouse College is testing an augmented reality space with their science labs, which is fascinating. It's also a way to reach people. They're doing it in a way to reach people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So providing a virtual reality space for students in maybe in a different part of the country who may not be able to attend the institution.
Smart.
Well, it's fascinating. No, I like that. I see. potential there. And so, one, I think the one is if we're going to use it, let's use it to actually address the needs that have been plaguing us for years. And two, have us get rid of tasks and assignments that may be so mundane or burdensome that students would just pass off. Yeah, even within that, there's drawbacks to what I'm saying, but I think those are approaches that higher ed can really think. It's made me really also just think about workforce stuff too. Of okay, if is there a potential? There's the opinions that say yeah, AI is going to take a bunch of jobs, and there's other opinions that say AI is going to take the jobs of people who don't use AI. Those are 2 different things, but there's different opinions of it all. I'm like, I don't know which one is correct, which one is incorrect, or there's correct on both sides. Then that's probably where the truth really is, in the middle somewhere. But it makes me think of, okay, if you really wanna go this workforce route, higher ed, alright, then combine it with ethics too. Combine it with the humanities as well. What I find fascinating is there are a lot of humanistic programs that combine technology. And so, for example, when I was at UT Dallas, before I left, there was a school called Arts, Technology, and Emerging Communication. And so this school, it was a wonderful, like the faculty were using augmented reality and AI to blend with the humanities. And we had people getting internships at Pixar and students getting internships at Universal Studios and things like that. And so there's room for it. But I think there just has to be the integration of both. They cannot tap into your emotions, right? Designed for that. But having the understanding of how people interact and how emotions take place can help in the case of the student who wants to do digital movies, things like that, can help understand how to cultivate movies that are entertaining.
Right.
And so if we want to blend workforce, we could do this too. So that's what I think about it. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. That is a great perspective, and I think organizational wise, I think it's going to be interesting because I don't know if parts of academia are integrating it into their operations. I think workforce prepare. I don't think that some organizations are preparing the students to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some places are very resistant about it. And then many faculty are very reluctant to do it. I think my perspective is AI has been around us forever.
It has been.
Not forever, but before a very long time. And now how it shows up though, that's where the difference kind of lies
Yeah.
and how accessible it is. I've heard someone say one time, well, before there were calculators and before there were statistical software to run analysis, we were all doing these things by hand, but it hasn't made us any dumber,
Nope, it has
which
not.
is which is a valid argument. And by the way, when I was in grad school, I had a stats professor wanting us to do regressions by hand, which I'm like, No, sir. I am never That's crazy."
I'm old enough to have done it. Yeah.
That's so crazy to me. Nope. SPSS, that's what we're doing. No, I'm not running multiple regressions by hand. I'm sorry. No.
I have.
Yeah. It's
Back in the
terrifying.
'90s, because when I started my doctoral program was when I remember my first month in my doctoral program, for some reason, I was going to faculty meetings. The department had been going to faculty meetings, and we saw the World Wide Web during that. So yeah, we were not doing any stats. And so now I hear students talking about their stats and, "Oh, I have to take 1 stats course." I'm like, "I had to take 3, and everything was done by hand."
Yeah, yeah, I had to do 5. It was annoying. It was tough. It was really hard. It was really hard. Yeah, it was really hard. I yeah, and but yeah, but even in that example, right? Like, we can still ask our research questions that we wanna ask by virtue of doing either still doing stats by SPSS. One of the things that does come to mind for me, though, that a potential danger for all of this, though, is how much productivity is gonna be expected to be sped up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Likewise with
Oh, yeah.
likewise with running SPSS. Well, so you know, you can crank out so many articles now faster because you don't have to because you can get data faster by having people fill out a Qualtrics form. By the way, when I was in grad school, I was the master of getting hundreds of people to do a survey in 3 days. I was so good at it because we had so at the University of Iowa, we had a listserv that went out to 50,000 people,
Wow. Yeah.
and these things would just pop up, like,
Yeah.
research put their studies out
Oh,
there.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you probably get maybe, what, 2 emails a day from the university community or the broader community, and if you qualify, you could do it. Some researchers were paying folks to complete their studies, but my stuff was I was send out I remember I had a conference presentation. I had submitted the abstract for it, got accepted, I had to do this conference presentation. I didn't have my data. It's like 2 weeks until I gotta go, and I didn't have my data yet. I put that bad boy on the listserv. I got 300 respondents in 2 days. And I was like and so then I was like, "Oh, man, we good now." So once I set up all my coding in SPSS, I just need to download the data set, create the variables, and then run the analysis and then write it up. I was good to go. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
I yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So
Oh, as we come to a close here, what would you like to leave listeners with about leading with vision and courage and purpose? Because you have really have been able to do that throughout your career in the examples that you've shared. What advice do you
I
have?
think a couple of things. Yeah. I think about some of the things that I think about some of my upbringing, growing up in church. I grew up in a Baptist church where, I heard quotes and words from people like Howard Thurman and Samuel DeWitt Proctor and folks of that sort of the theological thread of one, just basically just knowing who you are, whatever space you walk into, know who you are and know what you stand for and know what your values are. Combining that with just some of the more contemporary thought of Ruha Benjamin, who's one of my favorite authors. She's a professor at Princeton University, professor of sociology. Her book called Imagination touches me so much of a lot of her writing is about making sure that you create the worlds that don't exist yet. And in order for that to happen, you need to have an imagination about what can be. And I love her work so much because she talks yeah, there's people's imaginations who are squandered as they get older. Minority communities, our imagination is suppressed, but there are other people who allow their imagination to flourish. Elon Musk and they got an imagination about what they want and going to space and Mars and all of that. That's an imagination. And so why can't we have an imagination about the world that we want to create? And a world that's full of freedom, justice, opportunity. And then so that's what I would say in terms of help making sure people lead with their values and just stay true to who you are.
That is so inspiring. I'm ready to go take on the world now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you recommend Ruha Benjamin's book. I'm actually trying to get her to be one of our speakers for our distinguished speaker series. I am determined. I am determined to find a way to get her to come to Dallas because people in our community need to hear that. So yeah.
Now, are these events available online too, virtually, for those of us that are not?
Yeah, so our lunch and learns are available online, and the book club is also available virtually as well. So, folks, if you want to join the book club, you can sign up, and I'll send the link out for folks to be part of the book club, and I'll send you a Zoom link. We have folks who join from DC, someone else who joins from Houston and Chicago. And so we've created this community. Community in this instance for the book club is a bit broad. Most of our people, of course, are in Dallas, but we have those folks too. But then we also, for the lunch and learns, those are open to anybody everywhere because they're 100% virtual anyway.
Okay. We'll make sure all that information is in the show notes and that people can connect. Okay, so I have to ask you the question I ask everyone. How do you define innovation?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, innovation is really about going against status quo. I think that's where I begin, right? If you want to innovate something, you need to be going against what already exists and going against the reasons why it can exist. For me, starting this institute is about going against the grain. And I feel like I've always had a sort of a rebellious spirit, if that makes sense, in terms of, okay, who says this can't be? Why can it be? Why can't it be better? And so innovation starts there for me. And to that end, innovation is also designed, it should be designed anyway, to make people's lives easier and better. And for me, creating this institute is about helping people have better lives through knowledge and understanding and awareness about these important topics.
Thank you for that definition. That is fabulous. That is fabulous. And thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you reached out. I'm so glad that you did. This was, again, an inspiring and informative conversation. And I just really appreciate you and your work.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And this was such a great conversation. And I look forward to what happens next. And I'm so glad to be on your show. I really appreciate the people that you brought on, highlighting these voices of people who are doing great things in their communities and in society. And so I'm glad to be part of it.
Thank you. And I'm sure I will invite you back too.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sure we can talk for hours. So if you'd like to learn more about Dr. Bennett and the People's Institute for the Common Good, make sure that you look at the links in the show notes. I encourage you to follow their work and join the dialogue and consider how you can contribute to shaping spaces where equity and understanding thrive. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and comment on the podcast. It helps us to continue to bring these conversations to you and connect with Lance on LinkedIn too. Connect with us on all of our social media platforms and visit the innovationandinsights.com website for more resources, upcoming episodes, and ways to engage with us. Thank you for tuning in and keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference.